Hi everyone, welcome to part 6, which is the grand finale of our mystery block of the month 2014 for Quilt Mania. My little helpers tonight are otherwise busy. They've been trying to Skype their friend Mary in Cheltenham in the UK, but as you can see they're not having too much luck. They've given up, so they're just going to slip through this little session. In part 6 we're going to be making a pieced and applique border. So the applique consists of a 6-pointed star with a hexagon centre, so it sort of relates to the middle of our block. On the end of in the corners, we're going to have an applique hexagon, again just repeating what we've got in our centre with some little applique tulips in the corners, so that will go on each end. But it's really my style, very scrappy. The more fabrics I've got, the happier I am with what I'm doing. Now, as far as cutting out goes, we have got half square triangles on the corner here, and we have quarter square triangles in between. Now, for the quarter square triangles, we're going to cut a 6 1/4 inch square, and then we're going to cut it twice diagonally, so we actually create 4 triangles from each square. There are 16 different prints, so you actually need to cut 16 one square each from 16 fabrics, and that's going to do all the 4 sides. What I've done, each side is exactly the same, so it's just a repetition, and that saves you thinking too much about where your fabrics are going to go. Now, the half square triangles on the corner, you're going to cut a 3 3/8 inch square and then cut that in half diagonally to create 2 triangles. And I have used 4 different reds for those. I've used as many fabrics as I possibly can. Now I'll just put this aside for a second. Then we've got our background square. It's the same background that we used in part 3 and part 5, and we are going to cut 4 1/8 inch squares, and there are 36 of these, okay, at 4 1/8 inch, and then we have 4 corner squares, this one here, and you're going to cut those, they're finished 5 inches, so they'll be cut 5 1/2 inches. Now, the next thing we have to look at are the hexagon stars. I think at the end of part 5 I mentioned you'd need some 1 inch 6-pointed star papers. Now let me show you how we're going to adjust those to work with what we're doing here. Now I'll show you how to adjust your templates to work with what we're doing. Now this is what your 6-pointed star diamond looks like. You're going to take one of your 1/2 inch hexagons and line it up like so, that these side bits here are level, and then draw a line across the top here, which I've already done, and then we're going to trim that off like so. Then that fits across here. Hang on, I'll put it down here. Stitched like so. Alright. And then it's just very much like doing a hexagon. One thing that I do find with points can be a little bit tricky to turn under, so can you see that I've actually, rather than a pointy seam allowance here, I've actually cut the seam allowance off straight. Now just let me show you what I'm going to do down there. Now we're just going to tack this onto. You might prefer to glue it. I like tacking, so it's just, everyone's got a different way of doing things, and I'm sure you find as we get older we don't like to change, we get very set in our ways. Now I'm just going to turn that corner and then just do 1 stitch here to hold it in place. And then at this end I'm going to turn this end bit over flat onto the point like so, and then turn this side in, finish tacking. So it's, in essence, what I'm doing is mitering that corner, and it just gets rid of that horrible point that sort of sometimes sticks out when you're doing paper piece diamonds. And then I just bring the other side over. Oops, get rid of the thread. Like so. Can you see? And just keep going around like. Until it's all covered. I don't finish off, I just actually just cut my thread, and I find that holds beautifully. Now then that, I've only got, can you see there, there's a little bit of frayed bit sticking out, but I can just poke that in with my needle as I'm stitching. Now the way we're going to stitch these together is very much like our hexagons. We start with our centre, and then just one stitch to here, to here, to here, to there, to there, to there. So I do all the inner seams, and then I do all these little ones going out. Now while we're sitting here looking at that, the fabric in the middle, this is the fabric that you're going to be using if you're doing the program with Quilt Mania. Now you'll notice I've got not quite, I wanted to use as many of the circles as I could rather than waste a lot of fabric, so I've only got that much seam allowance between those two, but that's actually plenty to turn over, and I can be sort of a little generous on the rest of it. You can see I don't measure my seam allowances. After all these years I just eyeball my 1/4 inch, and then I can just put my template in and fold it round and turn it under. Now it can be a little tricky to sort of get the exact centre. What I've done, I just ruled 2 lines across my paper template, and I use that as a template to draw around. You may have the little sets with the open windows. I just don't have one this size, so I put a pin in the middle there, and then I just eyeball the centre of the circle. Whoopsie-days. This never works when you're filming. And just draw around it, and then I've got the circle in the middle. So be frugal with your fabric and make it go as far as you possibly can. So that's when your hexagon is complete, you're going to applique it to the centre of your 4 and 1 at your 9, 8 and 12, 36 squares. To get it centred, I actually just finger press it in half this way and that way, remembering that the squares sit on point. They're not sitting straight on, they are on point. And then with my completed star, I have got these lines, so I can line this point up here, and then this seam here, remember your star will be complete when you're putting it on, lines up here, and then this point here again with that line, so you get it nicely centred. It is sort of fairly snug on the block, so just be careful you don't stitch it out into your seam allowances. Now you'll notice too I've actually fussy cut this one here, which is actually from this fabric. So all I did was just place the diamond like with the flower sort of sitting at the top here, and so I've got that sort of so there we go, you can sort of see it in the block. Looks quite effective. Some I haven't fussy cut. This one's been fussy cut here, so has that one. And then just let me bring this over a little closer. And I've actually, in this one, this is quite subtle, but I've actually fussy cut that as well too. So in that one, all 6 pieces are fussy cut, but in most of them it's only, if I have fussy cut, it's only one of the 2. So here I've just got a straight line. I've got a little bit of interest here, and then with the stripe fabric, I have the stripes running out like so. Now in your corner squares down here, which you've got 2 different sorts, just to sort of again have as many fabrics in it as we possibly can. I've repeated this fabric in both of them, but then just added 2 different reds. So here I've got a little feathery one here, and one of the plaid checks there. Now the middle of the tulip is the same on all 4 corners, but I've got 2 squares using this fabric, which goes back to your swags in the part 1, and then the second swag used in the other 2. So, but I mean, obviously you can do whatever you like. Here's where you might be able to make your own mark on the quilt. You might like to put hexagons in here. You also, you probably need to purchase more fabric, and it's probably the reason I didn't do it, because we just had the 65 centimetres of the chintz. But you could actually broder a purse in each of those squares as well too. So you might like to sort of mix it around a little bit and put your mark on it. Now, when cutting out your pieces for the little applique, I'll call them tulips in the corners, I like to make my templates from freezer paper because I can actually iron it on. It's easy to cut out the curved shapes. But what I did was, with my white marker pencil, I've just drawn around the outside of it. So I can peel, actually I'll cut it out first. So I like to, and sort of see how with this you can sort of interlock them to save fabric. So don't just do them all in a row, you can sort of twist and turn them around. So I'm going to have an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So for needle turn, I definitely don't want any more than that seam allowance, even a little bit less in there, just a smidge off. Now also too, I'm going to do a little clip into here, into this side, and then down into here, because I'll never turn those under if I don't do that clip. Then I just peel that bit of paper off, and there's my my turning underline that I can sort of easily see. Now the same with this one again too, just a freezer paper template which you can iron on. I've drawn around it with my white marker pencil, and there we go, there's my, and then I can just chop it out again with my 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now if you're a little generous up here with a bit more seam allowance, although this is a tiny bit to do it on, if you refer to the video on YouTube of how I did the points here, you could do the same on that end there. And there's they're the 2 shapes required. Now what I have done, I actually appliqued this on as a whole piece. If you could sort of see underneath here, that's sitting like that. Then when that was completed, I laid that on the top and applique over the top, so you're not worried about, you know, not certain bits not being covered. When it comes to piecing this section together, it is just literally a repeat of what we did back here in part 2. So we have hexagon star appliqued onto our background square. It's going to sit on point like that. We're going to add a half square triangle here, and when that's been stitched on and pressed, we add the other half square triangle at the other end, and then that's stitched and pressed back to where it's going to sit, and then we add this on like so. And we just repeat down the rows in diagonal rows like this. The next row, if this one's done, the next, or down to the next corner, they're going to look like that you do your square in the middle and 2 quarter square triangles each end. And you just repeat that until you've got your sides done. Well, Fletchy, it's been a hard day in the office. Sitting at a computer all day makes your eyes red, doesn't it, mate? Okay, now we are looking at the what we're going to do with the very outside border. Now, I selected this print from the Summit Rose range, but not with the intention of using the whole width. What I'm going to do is actually cut it in half and use portions of it, like half of it. So what's going to happen is, we just flip this over, we will get, I'm hoping this scallopy effect here will actually sort of stand out and really make the border look a little bit different. So think about this with lots of your borders. I like doing it with pillar prints, cutting them in half down the middle and just rejigging them, and it just makes your quilt look that little bit more special. And all it is the way you've cut the fabric. You don't have to do a lot of extra work. Now what we need to do here, which is you've got to put a little bit of thought into it, and not everyone will have the centre in the same spot because it's going to depend where your fabric was chopped off on the bolt in the shop. So as it turned out with mine, the centre was actually in the middle of, well actually no, sorry, the centre wasn't in the middle, because if we go down to this end here, you will see here, this is the actual, these pins depict this corner here. And I've got all this extra here. All I need is 4 inches here. So the 1.7 allows you a little bit of leeway to sort of rejig what's going to become the centre of the quilt. And if you notice when I go back down here, these 2 pins depict the end here, and I literally only have 4 inches, which is what I need as an overhang, because this is actually going to be a 3 and 3/4 inch finished border. Now, so I've actually marked the centre, and also too I've actually marked the corners where this pin is going to go to the seam allowance here. Okay, so that takes care of two sides. Now, because I've cut this in half, I have to make sure when I put it on, one goes to the left and the other one to the right, or one to the top and one to the bottom. They have to be opposite one another. Now, the second bit, because you're going to get in your, what's going to be posted out to you is your seam line is going to be, you'll get from this point here down, because one length is going to do 2 people's quilts. But if we look at the fabric, you'll notice that in this second one, this main part of the pattern is actually offset. So we have to take that into account when we're sorting out where it's going to go, because we want to basically have the same, as close as possible, the same pattern in the centre of each side, and then we should be able to do something quite interesting with, or have something quite interesting happen on the corners when we miter them. So with this one here, oh, and sorry, the best way to actually cut this in half is, what I did was, this one is cut already, but we'll pretend it's not. I folded this in half, matching these lines here, and pressed it in half, and then just cut down that line to actually get the 2 cut in half. So it was really simple. Now with this one, what I had to do was adjust my centre slightly, that you'll see here that it's not exactly the middle of the pattern like this is, but it's pretty close. and then on the end here I've got just my 4 inches, and it's at a similar spot to what this one is here. And if we go to the other end, I need a big studio, don't I, rather than just the dining room table. And then this end here, this is where these pins here go here, and this is actually all I need. So again, this is excess. So you just have to have a little bit of a play with it to get it to be in the position you want. You might find when you get to your centre that this, I'll go back down the middle here, but you might find that your centre is this portion of the pattern. That's not going to matter. We just want this as close as possible, the same spot in the centre of each side. Now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and put it all together and come back with these stitched on, and I'll show you how to mite at the corner. Well, we started filming this segment 2 hours ago, and Fletch, you can see, is just, he has not moved, he's just stayed there the whole time, fast asleep. Okay, now I've actually just quickly whipped into my sewing room and put the last border on and the border stripe, and I just want to show you the mitered corner. Now, because we've actually got a similar design in the centre, I was hoping something interesting would happen on the corners. It's not a symmetrical design, so it was a little bit of a surprise, a mystery quilt, so it all goes together really well. Now, I've actually stitched to the 1/4 inch line, so I've actually got open ends here, okay, and I just laying the one here to my left on the table, this one on top, and I'm going to fold that under at a 45-degree angle. So this is virtually a repeat of what we did in here with this one in the middle. Now I just want to match all my lines up and sort of see what happens here. Now I've got this flower here, does look like it's coming out of this, so it forms an interesting pattern. Also too, I've got these the lighter lines here going all the way around, which sort of tends to lighten the border up as well too. Now I'm going to pin, first of all I need to check my angle. So with my ruler that has a 45-degree angle on it, I'm going to line up the edges of the ruler with the edge of the pattern, and with a stroke of luck, if that 45-degree line runs down my fold, I know I have a square corner, which I do, so I'm just going to ease that away. If I was at the ironing board, I would just give that a press, but I'm just going to pin it instead. Making sure that I've got the pattern matching on like the geometrics on the corners match. Like so. Okay. Now I would or will now be appliquing those corners down. I can trim this excess here off. Just cutting it level with the edge of the quilt. You may prefer to leave this until it's after it's stitched. And then when I have stitched it, all this excess here gets trimmed back to a 1/4 inch seam allowance with this seam line that's going to run diagonally here. Now, with the fact that it's not a symmetrical pattern, we haven't got all 4 corners the same, but we have got sort of something that doesn't look too bad on each corner. Here we've got like a bit of an oval shape. I'll pull the quilt up, so we get to this bottom corner. Again, a bit of interest down there on that corner. Now, just a little on this corner, just a little, see, everyone makes mistakes. I mentioned before that I needed a 4-inch overhang on the end. I actually needed 4 1/4. You can see what's happened here. Actually, I'll just get something light underneath so you can see it. I'm a little bit short here. I'm not going to worry about that. I can fix that with some stitching, and when the binding goes on that'll be fine, but disregard my previous measurement of a 4-inch overhang. It needs to be 4 1/4. Now the next thing, once I've actually appliqued my corners, it's ready to go off to the best quilter in the whole world, Helen Hayes, my very dear friend. So I've had to, in the meantime, choose some backing and some binding for it. So I've actually chosen one of the prints from Petra Prinz and Nell Kooiman's chintz range, which is where our broderie purse fabric comes from. I just like the light, airy pattern of this and the chintzy look to it. And then I've chosen one of their, we'll call it a plain, prints to make the binding. So the next time you see this, it's going to be totally quilted and bound, the whole lot. So in our next little clip, that's what you'll see. It's been a week since the last clip. It's Friday sewing, and as you can see from the table, we do sew, we eat a lot, and we also chatter a lot as well too. The quilt's finished, being stunningly quilted by Helen. Helen, please come forward. Everyone, this is Helen Hayes, who does all my quilting, and there's a fantastic article about her in the September-October issue of Quilt Mania, so make sure you read it. Thank you, Helen. Now, this is how the quilt looks. This is the end of the quilt. So, there we go. So, all quilted, our border print around the outside, bound, and it's now today heading off to France for its final photos.